So the bow is actually wood. Everything else is, goes around. Ridiculously neat. Just when you think about it, look, I can't be comfortable. Oh, they had a tie-in.
David Pollock was a master of the bow tie.
Oh yeah,
You guys remember him?
Oh yeah.
George likes that. Yeah, I've got it just right.
Well, thanks for bringing it out. Is that because you're on an anti-pleather kick?
yeah.
Is that why? Closet full of pleather?
It was big. I don't know what
Was it? Was it big? Hey, we'll talk about this in executive session.
I said, maybe you ought to start the meeting here before it's too cold.
Just pick someone for harassment. That's all it is.
Well, I was being genuine on the bow tie. I really was. That was a legitimate compliment. The pleather, that was just mean. I apologize.
Everyone broke half my closet right now.
Actually, they steal all the nice ones, and this is the one I get left with.
Self-evaluation, so it's just John.
Oh, this is right there.
Yeah.
Roger that.
That makes it easy to reach consensus. It's like, oh,
100%.
yeah.
Okay, go ahead and call the USD 489 Board of Education meeting for Monday, April 10th to order. First item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Okay. Good. I can see Sarah walking. Been moved by Board Member Rankin. Seconded by Board Member Lang. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Next item on the agenda is audience participation. No takers tonight. Next item on the agenda is communications from other organizations. None? Okay. Moving on to the next item is school spotlights.
We do have several items to end up sharing. A grant received from O'Loughlin teacher as far as classroom books. It's excellent when and this teacher's Beth Simon, who ends up was able to get a set of Magic Tree house books. It's always nice to end up having our classroom libraries get filled out better with books, and it was her initiative to end up doing that. So thank you, Beth. And then James Armstrong signs with Cloud Community College, which he'll be playing baseball at Cloud Community, which is wonderful. That's happening, already announced. We have student athletes that ended up getting all area basketball teams. There's 2 boys and 2 girls. Shane Barron's, Claiborne Kyles, Savannah Schneider, and Talon Levino. Very good. So excellent that they got recognized for doing so well with basketball. We have high school golf. They placed in their own home tournament, which is fantastic. We ended up having individual placements, which was very good. Alan Zollinger received 3rd place, and Josh Norris 6th, and Brent Winningsman was 9th place. So they did very well. O'Loughlin 3rd graders, they participated in Fort Hays State University shoebox project. I think it's really a unique idea. You end up having a project that ends up being for putting together something for children that need it elsewhere, but then end up having third graders from O'Laughlin that's helping to put it together. It seems to be a very simple but a wonderfully effective way to get them involved and make them feel as if they've done something really wonderful, which they have, of that going out to other children in need. And I guess recognizing a senior at Fort Hays State University, Isaiah Maxey, who really kind of orchestrated that. So it's really nice when the college students think of these projects and involve our elementary students. Hays Middle School students, they earned Wall of Fame honors. Interesting that here it's a bridge design, and there's a couple students, Selena Pearl and Carly Clinty, ended up doing extremely well, has the record at this point for the most efficient bridge. A couple other students, Samantha Zimmerman and Liliana Guzman, had one that's worthy of the Wall of Fame. Wasn't as good, I guess, as the other one, but it really was an excellent design, a very good efficiency as well. And I think those are the ones that are identified for this particular board meeting.
Thanks, John. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda, to include board meeting minutes for March 27th, 2017, personnel transactions, and the approval of bills in the amount of $2,397,597.85. So moved. Been moved by Board Member Waddell.
Second.
Seconded by Board Member Adams. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0.
And before we go to old business, a little bit on the report. My report, I wanted to end up sharing that last week we had a law symposium. Fort Hays State University had put that on. It was on Thursday. We had really, I think, a very good turnout. I think the number was about 160. So I think that was very good for their first time. They're planning on doing this again next year. It may not be law, it may be a different topic, but one item that's very important in education is the legal aspect of it, and had some very nice speakers, a variety of different items that they spoke on. We even had the education commissioner here who kind of wove that in, that he was here for an 11:30 presentation, but since he was here, he was going to present to the school, the community. We kind of tied him into another place within the college that he presented there. The future of education, we had a number of college students that showed up, some parents, a couple board members, our board members that was there. I think it was a very interesting presentation that he made, as far as he made it clear at the end of it that the one thing he was hoping that everybody who left had a headache thinking about it. And I guess that's a success when you end up bringing up enough items that that it does make you think. We are at a time of great change with our education. He brought up some points that was really being brought up by our architects, of some discussions there of what does the design, what does the space usage look like for the future, instead of still looking at the past as to how space and education is used. He brought up, it was very interesting. He's very open-minded as far as just thinking of how things need to be done perhaps in the future. And so it was a nice presentation. I think it was a very good day for those people who were able. We did have, if not all of them, the majority of our administrators were there. I think maybe one or two got pulled away. That's the bad thing of having something within your own town that they know they can get back to the school. but in time. But overall, I think they were able to stay for all of it. And
I should mention Sally Cobble, State
true.
School Board rep, was here.
I'm sorry, Sally was there as well. Sally is our representative in our area, and it was, yeah, it was very pleasant to see that she traveled with Randy this last week to quite a few different communities, but Hayes being one of them.
I think she said she was the only school board member, one of the only that got to travel with him because there was such distance between the schools. You know, most of them just, the geographic, they're so
Just-
close that they just meet there, but they kind of were on the road tour together.
It's true.
Yeah.
The other item I wanted to share was the early release. I think was very much a success. I think Shannon did a great job last week of recognizing the work that was done by the elementary teachers on the literacy program. And I think recognition was given where it needed to. Mark was given recognition. Joanne was given recognition for the work that went into for the reading and writing program. That's been a lot of work, a tremendous amount of work. But from the standpoint of sometimes school districts will pick curriculum that is easy to implement. And sometimes they'll pick it because it's inexpensive to buy. In our case, I don't think it was done either way. I think they picked the best that will really help the children the most, and that's something to really celebrate, that they did the most work the first year. Next year should be a little bit easier. I mean, after they've done that work, it should be. But it was a nice celebration last week on that early release of recognizing. So, it was,
No, really, it's the teachers that deserve the recognition. That was just, the ELA support staff who works with them recognized how much and the effort. And, you know, we don't do that enough. Say thank you and let people know that we value and appreciate them. And I think it goes a long way. I know it does. There were several teachers who emailed me back. So it was just a really nice afternoon.
and the videos that was put together were
We did a
excellent.
great job, you know, putting some videos together.
Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. Moving on to old business, first item is board policy review.
I know at the last meeting, there was little to none conversation.
Wasn't that not the payroll discussion as far as
Mhm.
yeah.
And looking at the changes that were made is just, it's one that it's hard to discuss, just really some common sense, logical changes on it. But if you looked at it from the last meeting to this meeting and had any questions, none came my way in the last couple of weeks. But if there are any, that's fine, we'll try to answer it. Tracy's here as well to do that, or are you in a position? I was hoping that it would be an item that could be acted on this evening.
I just have a question on the check signatures, EH. Rockwell receptionist, is that the new name for administrative assistant? Is that one?
No, actually, the administrative assistant is going to be taking over health insurance, and so we have a conflict there with her being able to sign. And so we're asking for the receptionist to be able to sign as a second signature on that. So we don't have any conflicts there, conflict of interest. And with the duties changing, it just makes more sense to have that person.
I move that we approve board policies EG for payroll and employee benefits and EH check signatures as presented.
Second.
Been moved by board member Waddell and seconded by board member Fox. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Next item on the agenda is the K-5 math curriculum purchase. I think Shanna kind of went over that at the previous meeting as well.
She did. And questions, if you had any from last meeting to this one, I hope you were able to contact Shanna. I did not get any questions on it, possibly because we've been using GoMath, and the information that we've gotten is very favorable for it. but it could be details that you may have needed to know as far as.
Shannon, I never got my sign in for parents to try to learn this.
It's going to take a while to figure that one out. But I did check our STAR math, the fall and the winter, because Nancy asked a good question. And really, every building but one is consistently over the 80 even, which is what we look for in a core program. The other one, there's a lot of at-risk population there, so that's typically why we just have a lot more interventions going on across the board. But I really think some training with this, which we plan for on April 21st, will help, and making sure what we didn't do, what I don't think was done last year, is when new teachers come on, make sure they're trained. Because, we just have given them the books, and if you weren't here when we adopted and we get that first training, then you're out of luck. And we really try to be intentional about training staff. And some of our new hires for next year, I'm inviting them to come already April 21st, if they're available, because I'm sure they're anxious to learn, and that way they'll have information as well.
How much higher of a percentage of at-risk are we talking compared to the other schools?
Well, and their scores were some of the grade levels were below 80, so they were 70 some, so it's not even that much below the benchmark. I would have to get that for you, Josh, as far as, it is.
Well, we've got a more pocketed at one school, so, okay.
Free and reduced, and then some ELL, some different needs, just the percentages are higher than some of the others.
Well, this is something I was just I guess for this we don't need a motion yet. So, free and reduced is automatically considered at risk? Automatically?
By state's definition.
Okay.
And I think
There was a discussion that actually went down this weekend, and I didn't know if, I guess, financial standing automatically qualifies or disqualifies somebody based on their educational abilities.
It does. They base it upon basically the ability of families to end up having the resources and the background at the earlier age to prepare the students as favorably as possible for school. Whether that's right or wrong, that's how it's based.
Well, and that, I just didn't know exactly how that was broken, so this is a good opportunity to ask that question.
I think it ties in with your socioeconomic status, and then, it correlates, not in every instance, but to maybe level of education, which then ties into the vocabulary used at home, the experiences you're able to provide, all those things which we know can make a difference. So.
Okay. So I wasn't too far off when I said I think so, I just didn't know. So thanks for the clarification. Yeah, I would be curious to see.
Yeah, I will.
It's not a high-level priority.
No, but that's
curiosity.
demographics that you can, there's a website we can find out.
Well, I would make a motion to approve the 5-year renewal of K-5 Go Math materials for instructional use in the amount of $96,315.60.
Second.
Been moved by Board Member Waddell, seconded by Board Member Adams.
I just have one more clarification, and I think I know the answer, I just don't want people to be confused. The full purchase cost, that's for a whole different program, correct? For the $200,000 that's on here?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's roughly what another program, and then even if we were first-time buyers to Go Math, that's what it would be. This is the renewal, which over 5 years is,
Because we
like I
had it
said, under
before.
$20,000.
Well, I just know these are all public documents, and I don't want someone looking at thinking that that is a total cost that we're approving,
Oh,
because
sure.
that has nothing to do with it.
No.
Clarification.
Good clarification.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Next item on the agenda is the district-wide LED lighting upgrade project, and I think Rusty and John are here.
Yeah, I'm really pleased that they're able to come and share with you, because we've talked about trying to end up doing what the district can do for energy savings. We've also identified that lighting is probably the one area that is the simplest, quickest turnaround as far as having savings. And it has been implemented for the last several years. Nice to end up having John here, getting also some recognition for the amount of work that he's put in, because John's maybe has done, I don't know what percent, 90% of all the work is of getting those switched out, and in the last few years, and it really does make a great difference. So please go ahead.
sent out earlier, and pretty much we're just going to follow what I sent out to you. There's been about 1,216 lights that we've replaced out so far between 5 buildings. And John's pretty much touched every one of them. We're taking the old ones out and putting the new ones back in. Currently at Hayes High, we've got approximately 932 remaining. We've got not quite 300 of those on hand to work on. As you look at the maps, that we decided that our highlighting skills weren't as good as we needed. I guess I'll show why. But if you look at the high school, you can sort of see the areas in green that we've been working on. The areas in yellow are what we're still hoping to do. You have this by the end of this summer. And we have that hallway that's starting the locker room area. The area that you see in orange, and you'll see that on all the maps, those are where we have T8s. There's some of the last ones put in, or some of the last ones we're going to look at changing. So as you see that orange on those maps, that's what that is. There's some lines drawn out in front of the building, basically representing where we put sidewalk lighting in as far as LED, and then also the parking lots are all switched over now that we actually have, that's not Midwest. There are 5 lights at the end that we still need to replace on the sidewalk lights. The hold up there was when they done that addition, they didn't run the same voltage that they had ran on all the others. And when we ordered the lights, we ordered them for that voltage. We figured out how to put a step transformer in there, switch the voltage to where we need it. We'll finish those up here. We've got the lights and the transformer now to finish that up. So that's where we're at the high school. The other buildings you can glance through, and middle school, we done that bit areas there in the hallway as we were doing the HVAC upgrades, and then the locker rooms with replacing the ceilings and stuff is sort of why we've been there. Washington and Lincoln, both of those buildings, when they were built, they had really good outside lighting for the classrooms, but the hallways were terrible as far as getting down through them and seeing them. Even to go in and clean during the summer, we added them just so that we could see what we were doing when we were cleaning in those hallway areas. Gyms, they're a big use area, and we've been trying to get all those converted as fast as we can. They're one of the higher payback areas. Roosevelt, the library, we had some concerns there as far as how the lighting was in relationship to where the book racks were. So we went in there and addressed that area, and while we were going to have the lights out, we went ahead and changed to the LEDs. So that's basically what we got. Then we're still moving forward. I did ask John too, if since we've started this basically 2 years now, if we had any failures in anything that we put in, and we have not had one failure yet on any of the LEDs that way. So that's a good thing. I was talking to him about the reduction in what we were spending on light bulbs and ballast, just to maintain the fluorescence that we had, and that's drastically reduced too. Matter of fact, last year we had some money left over out of that we bought more lights for. So.
John, are you planning on continuing the high school? Is that where you're going to continue to put your efforts? Okay. So at the end of...
I mean, that's the biggest, well, I say bang for the buck. I can get the most lights in a shorter period of time.
Will you be done with it at the end of next year? Or close to?
I'm saying, yeah, we'll probably be pretty close.
Done with high school. Okay.
Rusty, from just the amount that we've done at high school, which looks to be a decent size, have they been in there for any length of time? Do you even see anything yet as far as?
I couldn't answer that. If we had some kind of monitoring on there where we were monitoring ourselves, now if it was at the middle school where we actually got some monitoring set up there when we done the HVAC project, we might be able to pick up the reduction we have, but at the high school, it's...
Well, we talked a little bit on that, and one way we might be able to, is at the end of next year, is really look at just our bills over month by month by month and compare it over the last few years. But that's probably the only way we're going to be able to do it. And it should show up, because that's a lot of electricity.
Big difference, I would say.
Yeah. I think it still figures a third or a fourth of the electricity.
I mean, how many watts are the bulbs that are in most of those rooms that are before we put the LED in?
Yeah, the 36 watt tubes.
Times
6, yeah, usually 6. Most of the lights have 6, 4 to 6, depending on.
And how many of those are per room?
Most of the rooms at the high school have 9 to 12 lights. So, some of the bigger rooms,
LEDs drop that substantially.
Well, if you take the figures I had there, you know, we're talking 1,900 fixtures just basically at the high school, so take that time about 6 tubes. Now you'd have to drop, because we replaced gym lights, you'd have to drop them out of there, but even at 1,700 lights times 6 tubes, that's a.
What are the lots of the LEDs that are going in there in comparison to 36?
they're 4,000 watt lights.
Lumen.
Well,
Lumen, sorry.
Watts is what he's
Yeah,
asking. I knew that at one time.
I'm just curious on the-
I knew that at one time, Lance, and I can't.
Lumen's
tell you
right.
now.
Usually around 9 to
The
12.
biggest
That's what I
drop,
would think. I've said that's got to be a huge.
I think that's the
wattage.
average, is around 9 to 12.
Yeah.
so the biggest drop as far as changing the lights out is the heat lamp.
Oh, sure.
There's an amazing amount of heat lamp.
But
And to really, I mean, we were talking about savings electricity, but to really look at the total savings, you know, you've already mentioned it, Rusty, but like the materials, bulbs, you know, LEDs just last longer, and then ballast, yeah, I mean, there's, you really, to really do a true comparison, you gotta look at both replacement and energy.
I would say from a cooling standpoint too.
That's another good point. All that in.
Oh,
Really appreciate the work, John. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Yep, thank you.
Okay, moving on to new business. First item is the K-8 teacher device purchase. Scott, you here?
Do you want me to stand up here?
Chris, you want to say that?
And you're welcome. Right there.
Glad we do it, but it's-
Oh, get comfy.
So I wanted to come tonight and talk to y'all. I mean, I don't have a recommendation on K8 machines yet. Tech committee will meet next Tuesday and have a recommendation from the committee. But just to come talk to you tonight, see if there's any questions prior to that, and kind of, I guess, give you an idea about where, a general sense I'm thinking of going with this. Regardless of brand, I think it would be in our advantage to enter back into a self-maintainer program with whichever vendor that may be. We've done self-maintainer in the past, as far as we had the Dells, we had Dell certified technicians, HP, certified by HP again, and that allowed us to do our own repairs in-house instead of sending the machines back for either warranty repair or anything like that. They'd send us the parts. So that's really the big side of things I'm looking at. We've got another year out of the machines. We've had quite a few tickets. I mean, it's accounted. I think when I looked, had that report put together, quarterly report, out of somewhere around 30% of our tickets this year, which had 1,500 tickets put in. So 30% of those have been some sort of issue with the laptop. So yeah, I think we've hit a point. We've taken our reserves that we did have from 9 through 12, the student laptops that came back in, and we cycled those out. But we're to a point now, really, what's left in the office. When we have one come in, say the screen's malfunctioning or it's just shutting down, we're pulling the hard drive out of that, putting in another one, sending it back out the door. I may not see it again for 3 weeks, or I may be back in the next day with another issue. Some teachers have got I guess won the lottery this year on the machines that we've sent back out. We've had a few of them that have been in 6-7 times for a swap out. So,
What are the 3 different machines, the 3 different models that are being looked at?
3 models. We have one Dell, one HP, and one Lenovo. We've done HP in the past, we've done Dell in the past, so we do have prior experience with both. I would say I came in right at the end of the HP cycle, just as the services were being bought. And I know there was rough times coming out of the end of the HP cycle there with HP. So I can't say that I'd be too excited to jump back with that vendor, to be quite honest with you, with that being as fresh as it was.
Have we had any laptops out to the teachers yet to play with?
Demos?
Yeah.
This year, we did not do demos. We did that last year, and there were some teachers that I did get, feedback from. But for the most part, what it came down to was that they liked, this one because the keys were a little more raised than this one. I mean, it wasn't. I guess for the investment of time in it.
Some of our conversation has been in the discussion as far as what is the best machines. The machines, the comparison ended up being similar, cost similar. The issues sometimes a matter of what's the reliability, what's the service, what does Fort Hays State University use, what does the medical center use. And I'm just saying, as far as coming into Hays and being really available, those are things that are being investigated too in trying to make that determination. Yes, there is that consideration too of being able to fix our own machines, and if you have so many, you get free training, in that process of being trained to be able to do that. It's definitely something to consider as well. They did meet to discuss these 3 different machines a week ago, 2 weeks ago.
The tech committee?
The committee did. They will meet again on the 18th. On the 18th, they'll try to discuss information they are trying to gather and come up with a recommendation, which we really are with hopes that recommendation needs to be there at the end of this month from the standpoint.
Do we have K through 8 teachers on there?
Do we have?
Do we have any K through 8 teachers on the committee?
Yes.
They have an elementary and a middle school teacher and an elementary and middle school admin. With the high school as well, but yes.
And we have some that are very passionate about it. I mean, Jeannie is on it. She's at the middle school, and that's a safe way to say it. She's pretty passionate about it as far as really investigating it and wanting it to be as good as possible. So I think it's being investigated from factors that are a little bit more than, I like the keyboard better, some of those different things. That's true, but I think those are items that are being looked at.
What's the average age of the current devices?
They'll be starting their 7th year next fall, so we're
And that's why, from what I've heard, a lot of teachers have just abandoned that and gone to their own device. And so I would want to make sure that we have a couple of teachers, classroom teachers, that get a say or some opinion, ideas. To make sure that it is meeting whatever they're needing.
And
Classroom administration.
we went through this last year, and I still took the feedback from last year.
Okay.
And I didn't start over completely clean slate. Yeah, last year was each building.
Because that's when we decided to
That's right.
iPad. That was that, and then we asked what they need more than an iPad, so.
Right about that.
And that's, I guess, that's kind of one of my questions. So do currently all of the staff members have iPads? And what is, just because I was also, even the last time I had done some looking just with other districts that have gone, iPad initiatives or things like that, a lot of those, that's what their teachers use are the iPads. What is our rationale as that? The issue I have is with everything else going on, I have a hard time spending money on a second device for staff members. I'm not saying that, pie in the sky, if we can have everything we want, that's great, I'd love to have them. But what is it that we can't do on the iPads that they have to have a PC for? I mean, if we had a keyboard for them and things like that to be able to do typing and things like that, what is it that we can't do? And the reason I ask that is just because I know there's tons of districts out there that's all the teachers have is iPads.
There are some that do that. I know last year, really when we talked about that, it came back to like document creation, or that content creation. I guess a lot of them felt that having that laptop, it was easier to do the content creation than on an iPad. And I do know that there still is a gap to be bridged between that tablet technology and a laptop. And I think some of that is coming into place when you start talking about like the iPad Pro with the keyboard or the Surface.
Sure.
You know, I don't know if it's fully been bridged yet.
And I don't disagree with that. I just, it's one of those deals if we can do most of what we need to do with a lot of that, or I'm just curious if we've done any looking to see, okay, let's sit down and say, what can't we live without as far as doing this, or this. And like I said, it's not that, we're talking about a chunk of change here as far as to go out and spend this on this when we've already bought a device for all of these staff members. So that's the issue I have personally with this.
Well, we did do that work last year, and I guess you probably would have that, Scott.
Yeah, I thought we looked at this in August, and there was a list of like software that was a problem, and then I think the overall memory of the units. Because the stuff, the apps, yes, the apps they're running now basically fill it up. And so when we try and add, I don't know whether it's grading software or something else.
Well, but I know with a lot of our stuff now, we've got cloud-based and everything else where they can store a lot of that.
We've got some with our Office 365.
Is it a terabyte a person still?
It is. As far as the actual syncing back and forth, it's not, unless you're manually syncing it, it's not been.
Are we using just the Office 365 stuff? Or like for the Office and things like that? Okay.
They'll log into their Office account and then download and install the Office 2016 or 13.
Have we had anybody that have run those programs off of the iPad as far as doing the syncing that way?
Some have, but just overall, the syncing seems personal. OneDrive, that works fine for even us in the tech department. We tried it. I don't have a problem. I know others haven't, but it's kind of been frustrating with the business. I don't know what the difference there between Microsoft and trying to reach out to them, but that's easier said than done on a few things with them. So they do have the storage out there, but that storage, I guess, would be more for content they have created and put out there. And the iPads that they have now are only 16 gig. You install some of just the Apple apps. That uses up a good chunk of space. And we've got a few that right now they're deleting apps just so they can do something, and then they'll move that out to the cloud and then bring the apps back.
Doesn't the operating system itself take us full?
It's got better with 10.3.
Yeah, it got a little smaller.
I do think at least a few teachers that I had talked to, after using both, after they've had, I think they'll identify that the laptop is an instructional tool. The iPad is a learning tool, and I think if they had to pick between the two, I think I've heard from them that they would, if they were in that position of picking and having to pick, that they would, at this point, after using both, would end up picking this as their instructional tool.
And I don't disagree as far as the other. I'm
But
just trying to look at.
I'm just saying your point is well made from the standpoint, how much technology does a district actually need to provide? The issue is just a matter of, as we go through this, to identify what's the most effective, efficient, the best tool for them to utilize. There will be some teachers that may even pick iPad. I don't think that's by any means the majority. I think the majority would pick the
and I guess that was just what I was curious, is just, because there are a number of districts that do it. I'm just, what are they doing differently that their teachers are able to make it work?
I can speak on one district in particular. They have iPads in the classrooms, but they don't have an iPad that's identified as necessarily the teachers. They have iPads in in an elementary, they have iPads, and the teacher will use one of them, as during class time. But to say that it's their instructional tool, they have they have laptops, and that's what's actually identified or even linked to them, that that's their machine. The iPad's not. The iPad's one of the units that's part of that part of the class.
And I have, looking at costs too, because we have done the Surface Pros out at Case High. And so I know that there's been an investment in staff there, and then an investment with the K-8 staff as far as the iPads. I'm trying to keep that all level too, so I mean, it's not, X amount over here, less here, or more, how would that be?
Right.
Do you think you're planning on having that for the next board meeting as
Yes.
far as a recommendation? Okay.
And I can ballpark kind of give you an idea of where I think the price is going to land, over the models. And these prices are just, these aren't bulk prices, and they aren't, discount, and then also anything else the manufacturer wants to throw in there. And it varies between $124,000 and $134,000. But like I said, those are just the straight prices. Because the problem I got into last year is I asked all three vendors, go ahead and tell us what 200 would be. And then I had three vendors call me back, when are you going to purchase? When I tell them, we're not at this time. And so I was kind of leery to do that again this year. I didn't want to ruffle any more feathers with them. So,
How many devices is that?
that I'm looking at, 200.
And two things, Sarah,
Yep.
back to your question. There's at least 3 or 4 K through 8 representatives on the tech committee. So you want more additional?
No, I
People
just
that
want to make
say
sure they
so?
were classroom teachers, not, like, I'm
Okay.
sure
Yeah,
Jeannie
Yeah, she
Kaler's
just didn't know
house.
who's on the committee, that's all.
I just want to make sure we had classroom teacher feedback.
Yeah, and then
To
they're,
get to some of those content
Gotcha.
creation.
And I get that as well, but I also 100% see what Scott's saying, because that was also the group that selected the HPs that everybody hates.
Okay.
So, it's, I see 100% what Scott's saying is, there's, and nothing against them, they don't know that, but it's one of those where your testing environments, it's easy to throw that out there, I think, and say, oh, here, test that, and a lot of people are like, no, they use it a little bit, but then they have all their main stuff loaded on their other laptop, so it's, they're more or less just messing around with it and don't get a chance really to, unless you, in my opinion, unless you put it in place and have a handful of people use it for 6 months, I don't know of any other way to get a true feel, but I don't think that's feasible in this situation.
But I would just want to make sure that we get down to some of the details. K through 5, if it's classroom administration stuff they're trying to do on it, like you were saying, is this an enhanced iPad could do, versus the middle school, is it going to serve math needs, is it going to serve science needs, that sort of thing. So I just want to make sure that we hit.
and they're going back and talking, obviously, to their fellow teachers. Getting that. And the way this is, spec'd out, I'd hope, if this machine were approved, the specs on it, I'm hoping take us another 6-7 years down the road. By that point, pretty confident with the way technology is emerging, that bridge between tablet and laptop, it's already getting closer even since we purchased the services. There's other options out there. It's driving a whole other side of the market. So, obviously, I would want these spec'd in a way that would last us down the road. And then at that point, I would hope that we'd be at that point that those 2 devices could be merged into one. And then you wouldn't have the need for 2 devices.
Well, my assumption, Lance, is if 30% of your tickets, and you've heard teachers just give up and use their own laptop, and if the iPad would do what they need it to do, I don't think they'd aggravate themselves with their laptops, because I'm telling you, their laptops are, not working. So either we haven't explored how that iPad can do some of the things they need, but I know when we did our research last year and first presented and thought that we needed them, that we intentionally asked teachers compared, I don't know if we had a chart, that things that they needed a laptop for that they felt iPad couldn't. So maybe we just need to revisit that.
And I don't
because
disagree with
that's
that
a
at
good
all.
question.
I get what they're saying. That's just,
Right.
that's the hard thing I have, you know, for years, we
Sure.
went, if they just had HP laptops and we made things work, now we've got an iPad and we're going to give them a laptop on top of that, so, and I get it, I mean, I know that there's certain things that they may like one thing over the other, it's just, you know, 130,000 is 130,000.
Sure.
And is it a daily inconvenience? Is it a weekly inconvenience? I mean, the machines are white clean. What do you call that?
Formatting.
Yeah. So is there data? I mean, is it even across the board? I mean, certain areas using them more?
The staff machines, the student ones get formatted each year, staff do not.
Then so there's no data to pull from them to see how they're being used? Because if creativity is the biggest deal, I mean, you should go in and should be able to see how much is being created every year, right?
Just content. I guess to an extent, if you're looking at the file storage and seeing with that, I mean, going into each machine and seeing when it was created, because there's some that, you know, haven't had their machinery imaged in 4 or 5 years. And that, you know, to an extent is part of the problem, and that's why we've really pushed re-imaging them this year and upgrading to Windows 10. And that's helped to an extent.
If you could send out that chart you talked
Yeah,
about,
we'll,
showing the growth.
I know that was.
So I think not just for the board, but also for any community members who may be questioning or listening.
Why are we having so many tickets with our new devices? I mean, 30% on the old ones with, you know, 200 of them. Actually, I expected it to be a little higher. Why do we have 70% with such new devices?
The other tickets is it's all technology items.
Yeah,
It's not just
30% of our 1,500 total tickets.
Okay.
It's projection, this isn't syncing, a lot of times maybe it's a user error where we follow a show them or
So the new
something.
devices are a very small portion?
Which new devices?
How many new iPads and Surfaces do we have in the district?
I mean, we're 2,100 iPads. I mean, there's about 3,000 when you figure it all together.
So are they the largest portion of the 70%, or are they a small portion of the 70%?
It depends which ones you're talking about. Student services or staff services.
I'm just
Our
talking
bigger
new
issue,
devices.
iPads, this year, the iPads haven't been. The problems with last year was just that first year of implementation. There was issues with our MDM. But this year's actually been pretty stable with the iPads as far as getting apps out, what kids are doing.
So what's bogging us down then? Do we have other things technologically that we need to look at? Because I mean, if we're making a big deal out of 30% of the tickets being from the older devices, but we've got 70% of the problems coming from other areas, what's going on there? It doesn't need to be answered tonight, but if it's projectors, if it's stuff, I mean, that's a lot of bogged down time with relatively, I mean, home and schools have bought a lot of different technology over the last few years, so nothing's really outdated.
We've got a few buildings still with projectors.
I have a hard time
That's,
seeing that building is like 500
well, yeah,
tickets on projectors.
Just off the top of my head, I know that's some, really get into some.
And again, it doesn't have to be answered tonight, but
I'll
that's
pull the
concerning
ticket-
to me that we've got,
ticket data and see, break down the categories.
that's a lot of time from your department to handle stuff with such modern equipment. And a lot of investment into the infrastructure for it. So it's concerning to me. That's not for tonight. We'll pick that up somewhere else.
That wasn't in your report, Scott, you didn't break down the tickets, you just shared that one.
I just
Okay.
pulled that out of it.
Right.
But you do have the data?
I do have that from the ticket company, yeah. And a lot of that relies on when the tickets come in, the staff member classifies them correctly, sending them to us. We may get a ticket on a projector and they put it in under Power School. So there's some of that we rely on the end user to, correctly pick, we give a drop-down list, but that's not always the right category. We try to clean that up as it comes in, but I could definitely pull the rest of that data, break it out into different categories.
Most people have their own device, have their own laptop, you think?
Like a personal one that come in.
No, just in general. Do you know, wasn't that one of the, I know with Schwartz,
It was talked about, BYOD, there's a lot of districts that do BYOD.
and there was I thought we sent out a survey, a questionnaire, that would have been before you.
What's that? I
Yeah.
don't think I've seen that.
Just curiosity.
just send that out to parents, or do we send that out to staff? Because I think we were talking about students.
Thought we did both.
I thought it did go out to
Maybe
parents.
both.
Originated-
In somehow, or maybe it was part of an
Parents.
enrollment.
Originated with staff, and then maybe it just got pushed down to the
Yeah.
students.
I know sometimes you pull that.
Greg would
or you'll
remember.
survey that as part of your tech plan.
It's somewhere.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions for Scott?
But regardless, looking at a self-maintainer program, regardless of the vendor, that's what you're,
Yeah, just, I guess to minimize if there is, I mean, we've bought some Dells, and since I've been here, you know, we've had a few that, obviously, you're gonna have a few, but when we have to send those in, you know, then the person's without a device for 4 or 5 days, because, you know, it overnights, they have to overnight us a box to put it in, then we overnight it back, they fix it, then we take 2 or 3 days, and then they overnight it back, so you can be out a week of time. And I know.
staffing though, right now, are you staffed to handle the
Yeah. I
brand new
mean, we're-
self-maintainer, everything?
Yeah, I mean, we're maintaining the HPs right now. It would be, I guess, anywhere down the line if you were to have in more devices into that self-maintainer, and I know they've done that in the past, and when that is, I know you know, Dell or HP, whoever it was, we got money back for the repairs we were doing. So
That's what I was just going to ask.
that
Does that make
helped.
it worth it as far as, because I know most of your Dell Business Series offer Next Business Stay on site. So are the ones you're talking about, I mean, where you were mailing those back in, were those like Inspirons or things like that? Or
Latitudes.
and why would those not, because all of their Latitudes by default come with Next Business Stay on site.
I'd call support and they wouldn't send me the parts. They'd have to send it back to them for them to diagnose, because it was, another one we've sent in was a charging circuit on the motherboard.
Because they should actually dispatch a tech out here with the part to replace it. That's the reason I'm curious.
And I know we've got that on some of our equipment, like the servers and our backup equipment.
Even the university, this one's been sent in 5 times. So Latitudes don't get that, okay? But it's always had to go back. It's not something.
And maybe it's something that maybe on certain series or most of the Latitudes, that's the way they've done it. But yeah, this one.
And I know it was prior to me that they did that self-maintainer. And
Unless they did
I
it
don't
cheaper
want-
and did a depot warranty on some of those, which is possible.
And I don't want to misspeak, but I've been led to believe that in the past with that self-maintainer program, that also helped to fund, you know, additional help within the department if that was needed. Because I think they used to just have somebody at his high that that's what they did was
I think it was
work on
Hacker
that
or something like that.
Every day,
Yeah.
1 to 2, you know.
What I
Somebody
hear
sit
is
down.
it'd be good if you were able to share the ticket information, and that could be before the next board meeting, that can be sent out. And as far as the graph goes, we have that, and it can be sent out again as well before the board meeting. So we will do that.
And,
Good.
yeah, and just to clarify, how many devices do you have total that you're encouraging to maintain?
About 3,000.
So everything total, I mean, we're 2,100 iPads over, I guess by the time you figure your staff services in there, probably 900 services, and then probably another 200 laptops on top of that.
Okay, so that's 200 out of 3,000 is taking up 30% of your time. Okay, that's a problem. The 200 of the 200 HPs that you're talking about.
Yeah, and I mean, that time is also across the other issues with Power School.
Right.
That's,
It's not just,
Can I just say?
not just device failure.
That was not a surprise. You were planning on that at the beginning of the year, knowing full well that these would be a challenge to keep maintained through the year because they were the oldest machines. And so that was, you knew that at the front end of this year that you would be doing this extra work with this group of machines, right?
and we do have some staff that are just
Yeah,
living
I've
with it, they're not
I've had an iPad for
submitting a
4
ticket.
years, but I've never had one problem. You know, use it every day, multiple hours, so when you start talking about brand new devices, we got a company with 170 some thousand. Like our total tickets for my company with 170,000 laptops was 3,000 and something. They're 2-year-old devices. So that's 170,000 people globally So when you start talking about,
Well, we're talking about 7-year-old devices.
Mhm.
Counted for 30% of the time and only 6%.
oh, I understand that.
That's fine.
But when we're talking
Okay.
about 3,000 devices versus 170,000, and a high percentage close to the same number of tickets that we had, that to me is, so I'm looking at 3,000 into 170,000. It's just, why are we almost at the same number? I don't know, I'm just curious. I'm not saying there's a problem there, it just seems to me like for the new devices, it's even high.
Yeah, well, I guess we'll switch the information.
You're good?
Aren't you going to just sit down now?
He said get comfortable.
Any other questions for Scott? Okay, thanks, Scott. Appreciate it. Next item on the agenda is the workers' compensation review. Tracy?
Yeah, I brought this, mentioned it last meeting, and Josh had asked where our high was in our mod rating. So I went ahead and listed from our history from 2011. You can see in 2013 that we were at our high when our experience rating was at 1.29. We established the safety committee, had our first meeting October 15th of 2014. And since then, in the last 4 years, we do have it down to 1.04. So I was impressed to see those numbers. I listed the safety committee members and also their building and department. We do have a very diverse group across all the buildings and the departments. I really want to thank these folks. They have really put in some extra time and effort into and dedicated themselves into being a part of the safety committee and really trying to make it efficient and work, and then taking that information back to their buildings and sharing that out. So I want to thank all the safety committee members as well.
That's awesome.
Definitely
Heading in the right
good
direction.
trend line.
We want to keep going that way.
Okay.
Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is health insurance. John?
I wanted to end up sharing with the board that the negotiations last year ended up resulting in trying to look at another way in which to consider for health insurance. Even pursued a couple other service centers, such as Greenbush, ESDAC. The timing was a little late in checking on it, but not just the timing. The issue too was a matter of looking at really where we were, whether they wanted to accept us. The process with that, we're still talking about Blue Cross Blue Shield. You see, in both of those cases, you're still dealing with the same company, and as far as choices, we said that we would do more work through this year of trying to investigate and see what's possible. We were also told that in all likelihood, things would not improve greatly enough that probably in 1 year would make a difference. Maybe in 2 years we could get out and make it worthwhile to pay for the penalty of getting out, because we have 3 years with the state Blue Cross Blue Shield at this time. Maybe that would work. Well, involving Gallagher is a company out of Wichita that helps us with our property insurance. And with the property insurance, they've done a very good job. They have provided some guidance with some meetings at this point. At no cost at this point. They were just helping us considering other possibilities, even to the point of constructing a survey that we did get out to our staff, both classified and certified. I think it was over 300 people ended up responding to that. So it was a really good return. And that information we met last, it's probably been two weeks ago was the last meeting that we had met on. With that meeting was talked about the possibility of utilizing their service to continue with this. And in this particular case, it really was, in essence, it's a consulting process where they end up helping us identify what are the different possible options that we end up having. I've gone to the different, every faculty meeting, every faculty in the district, and went to the bus barn, Rockwell, tried to share what we're trying to do, not to scare people, because in this district we have a lot of people who are very comfortable with their Blue Cross Blue Shield. But I don't think a lot of them have recognized that the Blue Cross Blue Shield, the insurance is really their money. I mean, I think a lot of people think of it as district money paying for their insurance, instead of thinking that it's their money that's paying for the insurance, and not thinking from the standpoint there's maybe $650 a month that they're just quickly throwing to the most expensive insurance that's really out there. And if it's not the most, it's close to the most expensive. There are other options. And for individuals, those options don't have to be complete blanket for everybody. You can end up having different offerings. If someone wants to spend that much money on insurance, then that should be their choice. If there's someone else who doesn't want to spend that much, they want to spend $400 instead of $650 a month, it should be their choice. We made a comparison to automobile insurance, the possibility that most people have a better understanding of their automobile insurance than they do their health insurance. And especially when you're talking about schools, whose schools have done a fantastic job in my history and other districts that I've been in as well, that it's not anybody's fault. It's just a matter that that's what was decided on. That's what's being offered. You don't really question it. That's it. And you don't really end up working any farther than that. We have 65% of our staff, or those that are members, did not use more than $1,000 of insurance this last health insurance. And if you have 65% that didn't even use up to $1,000, then it does make you question. If anybody says, well, the majority want this, you've got to step back and say, is it really the majority? Or should we be looking at this a little bit more analytical, really look at the data and identify, and that's what the survey was about. So I'm sharing with you, Lance was at, if not all the meetings, most of them, Tracy was as well, so we have other individuals at present to end up hearing this, and I feel like I'm kind of stumbling along trying to describe it, but truly, that's about where we're at this point. There is a next step of really going to the point of agreeing to pay for at this point, a singular consulting fee to continue to get that help, which could turn into something else depending upon what we find out. And what I mean by that is we could get a month from now and basically decide there's nothing this year that really is, we don't want to, it's not in our best interest to try to break the contract with the state health insurance, because if it's $150,000 a year, that'd be $300,000 that would have to be paid to them to get out. But consider this, we paid $600,000 increase last year, so you could pay $300,000, and it may still end up being worth it, depending upon what the plan could be.
And I think even in discussions with them, it was brought forward with that at this point, I think there's been some preliminary talks with some of the other insurance companies and going through there. And the way I took it is he felt that they were to the point where if he didn't feel that there was some savings to be had, we wouldn't be going down this road. He in his opinion and from the work that's been done so far, he feels there's enough savings to justify to more than pay for itself, including, I think as he put it, even he hoped to even basically be covering the consulting fee as part of that.
No, checks and balances on this that I want everybody to know is, it's not that what we're doing will push it ahead, ramrod it, anything, because it's still negotiated. You know, you can still go through the process where the teacher group, and I mean, in the storm process, they may say, yeah, but we still don't believe in it. And it may not happen, just because of that. But I'm saying it may be something that even if it doesn't happen this year, I'm just excited that there's the conversation and we're moving that ahead so that if it doesn't happen this year, it has the possibility the year after, or the year after that.
And I think it was surprising, even just with a lot of the comments back on the survey and things like that, there were a lot of people that stated that, you know, that they would like to see more money, basically, you know, maybe like John stated, about not having, maybe they'd like to see more money in their pocket instead of more of that going towards insurance and things like that. So it was an eye-opener as far as seeing a lot of the survey stuff.
Then when I mentioned that the district spends over $6 million on health insurance, it's really odd. Let me change that. I mean, the real right way to say that is the employees of Hayes Public Schools collectively put out over $6 million of their dollars for health insurance. That's probably the correct way for people to think of it. And most have been very happy to do it, again, because that's the way it's been done. I mean, it ends up being, it's been good. Nobody necessarily has questioned that. The doctors in this area accept Blue Cross Blue Shield. They don't have a problem with laying down their Blue Cross Blue Shield card and someone going, let me check on that. I mean, it ends up being stable, comfortable. And that's one thing that people are holding on to as well. But again, just throwing it out there that those should have choice. If you have 20% of the people who want this, then maybe we should arrange that they definitely can. But it doesn't mean that then 20% who want that forces the other 80% to have to have it. And I used 80-20, probably should have gone with 35 and 65, you know, with what the number I gave earlier of 65%. Didn't even use $1,000, but I don't know what the percent above that was, where it was less than 2,000 or less than 5,000.
I think the other thing to point out too is that we brought up is that we're also trying to compare it apples to apples with what they have now, where it's not something where they're going to lose benefits or things like that as well. And some of the companies that are being talked about are they're not to say Coventry is small. I mean, they've been since bought out, but we're looking, you know, Aetna and United Health and things like that, which are 20 times the size of what Blue Cross is. I mean, so their networks are monstrous, and those are different things, you know, even in talking with Hayes Med and a lot of the other surrounding areas where you've seen the networks and things like that grow over even the last several years. I mean, using the city as an example, I mean, I remember when they went with Coventry, there was a bunch of, and again, I'm just using that as an example. I'm not saying we're going with Coventry, but I know there was a lot of discourse with that, and then as now that they've had it for several years, and now you have most people are under that accept it, it's not near the issue. But like I said, Aetna, I mean, to give you an example, I think Blue Cross has like, gosh, I want to say like 2,500 or something like that as far as in the state of Kansas. And I mean, you're talking like Aetna, you know, it's ridiculous, like 40,000 as far as I mean, they dwarf Blue Cross. Now this area of Kansas, Blue Cross seems to be, that's all anybody knows. But like I said, they're like this big compared to some of the other big health guys out there. So I think it's definitely something to at least explore.
That is the thing that we're doing, but it's scary when the word's out there that we're going to end up going with something else. It is a process of exploring, and exploring wasn't okay a year and a half ago. So that's why I thought it was important to bring it up to the board to say, we kind of entered in this year of doing a little exploration last year during the summertime. and we're continuing it at this particular point. I just wanted to make sure that the board members knew that this is what we're stepping into as well.
And the other thing to point out as well is I think if we do decide to go that, and correct me if I'm wrong, John, but I believe they stated that if we decided they could have numbers within about a month or so, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, they did.
So-
They said that the numbers could be, the other piece that's really troublesome is, we had finished our negotiations last year. And then later, we found out that there was an increase with dental that's tied to Blue Cross Blue Shield. I think up to $80,000, $90,000. Well, the problem is, the state runs by a calendar year, not a fiscal year. And when we checked on, Tracy did contact and got the answer that they will not change that. They run on a calendar year, we run on a fiscal year, we negotiate on a fiscal year. It doesn't line up. And in asking the question of, that's got to be a problem for other districts too, well, the answer was, yes, it is. But it doesn't matter. They're not going to change that. It will continue to present its problem that we will, when we're negotiating this year, and if we're still with the mode of using the state Blue Cross Blue Shield, we may not get all the information we need in the time frame that we're negotiating, which is wrong. It's very hard to do.
And I think, John, it went a long way. We talked about, people do get nervous when we talk about changing health insurance. I mean, the employees, and so the recommendation was to go visit and explain the reason for the survey and how it could be used. And so I think that went a long way, and some teachers are like, oh, okay, yeah, I get that. I might be interested in that. So is there a plan to keep the teachers involved somewhat along the way with the process so that they see, the majority of them aren't really even using a lot of that insurance, and just something to think about as to bringing them along, because again, it is a negotiated item, and if we do all the work and they're not a part of it, and then in the end they may be like,
I think we have to keep them in the loop the entire way as far as going through that, and I think a huge portion of this, as we even found out from the survey, is the education piece. There were specific questions dealing on there, and there was a large number of them that said that, yeah, I would like to sit down I mean, there were people, there were a lot of people that answered back that, that, as an example, like certain people may not have even known that they had dental insurance or different things like that. So, I mean, there's that big education piece. And I mean, if we don't have this, it fails. You have to have that. Just like John said, I mean, people seem to understand their car insurance more. I mean, health insurance anymore, especially with the exchanges and everything else, has become, it used to be simple, and now you have so many things. I mean, and we saw that even last year in negotiations when we went through and we're talking about the stuff from ESDAC and the other stuff. I mean, the plan there was Blue Cross, and it was clearly a better plan, but I think it's that unknown factor, and until some people branched out and finally talked to some different people, then we were okay to look at that. But again, it just goes back to that unknown, and I think you're 100% correct. I mean, anytime you start looking at that, people right away are like, oh, wait a second. So,
but it's something that almost every other industry and every other company does that education piece once a year when it's time for them to do open enrollment for benefits. They explain what the different options are in the different plans. And even though we have offered different options from a health insurance perspective, I don't know how much education there has been, especially for an existing employee every year. And so they've just automatically gone with what they've known, and now that's all they've ever known, whereas this whole industry is just, changes so quickly and so rapidly. And so you're absolutely right. We've got to do a better job on the education, no matter, I think, which way we head with this.
and I think that's something that, as a part of this, we were even talking about the enrollment, doing a centralized enrollment with just for school in general. I think that's also been talked about in this as well, instead of having the alternative insurances, their supplemental insurance is done at this time of year, and then we have something else done here. Having that all basically put together, and then having representatives that are going to be at each school to be able to sit down with people individually and answer those questions and look at what they have and say, well, gosh, let's look back what you last year. It might make more sense for you to go to this plan or whatever, instead of it just being, oh, well, you want to keep with what you have? Okay, just sign here and away you go. And I think you have that at any place you go to, but it's easier for a lot of those employees, just like, oh yeah, I don't need to change anything. But if you can actually show them the data from their account, or be able to go through and say, well, gosh, John, it looks like you used this much last year and you had this and this and this, we might be better off in this case looking at this plan that has this deductible for you, and maybe also looking at this supplemental insurance or whatever else the case may be, all in one fell swoop, so they can look at that, or the dental or whatever else. And again, just going back to the educational piece.
It is going well. It's just a matter, I really do feel it's going well. But to continue this means we're going to be hitting that step where, we step into negotiations again. And health insurance, at one point, there was this kind of comfort level of going, well, we're in the 3 years again. That's not really a negotiated item so much because we're tied into it with a contract for 3 years. Well, yes, but we can get out of it. We can end up paying the penalty, and it may be worth it financially. That's what I'm saying. Money-wise, it may be worth it to even get out this year.
And we did find out that even in dealing with them, there are a number of other districts who have gotten out of the state plan. So. Okay, next item on the agenda is the centralized district enrollment.
I can speak a little on that. We have Shannon can as well. It's an idea that came off of our last year enrollment. The idea came out of it of saying, is there a way to do this more efficiently, effectively, and some of it was what would, we're doing enrollment for parents, and you can have a parent going to 3 different buildings, different days for the enrollment. One of the ideas was, can we do a centralized enrollment for everybody? Checking, there's a number of districts, even talked to Mays, they've been doing it for 10 years actually. Other districts we know of that's started it in the last few years. It takes a lot of organization, but from what we hear is they didn't switch it back. I mean, they're still doing it that way.
And they get better every year. I mean, it's not perfect the first year, but.
What percentage still come in to enroll?
Right.
Like, because I mean, I don't.
Because you do the online.
Yeah.
Yeah, the online has increased, they said, quite a bit. No, I don't remember the number though.
Yeah, it's a small percent that finishes online with payment, like your credit card. There are a lot that get to that and won't want to pay the fees, so they come in to make the payment, or if they need a payment plan, some of that. So there's an increase in, those who are doing it online, but those that complete it online, probably not as high as those that get started online. It's hard to pull that data right now because, or Scott, you're looking at IP addresses. We can tell who's done it before we do enrollment at the schools, but once we open enrollment at the schools, everybody looks the same, whether they were in the school doing it or at home doing it. So that's what's kind of tough. Or Scott, do you have some of that data?
Yeah, last year it was 1,614 enrolled on our network.
Okay. Out of?
I don't know what
Out of our
2,966.
Okay.
3,000. About 50%.
So more are still coming to.
Who are we using for the processing for the credit card? Do we need to try to negotiate that better so it's not so steep? Because it was steep. I think I was one of the ones that, we paid it for one, by the time I got second and third, I'm like, wow.
It adds up, because you're right,
It
it's
adds
every
up.
time.
It's every time.
Tracy would answer that probably.
It's part of the power school system. I don't know about negotiating with fees, Scott, if that's anything that we would have the ability to do or not. It's been pretty standard.
You can ask.
I think we should, and I think, to say that we've got people trying to use that process, but then gets that point because that fee's so high.
But still, we have the plan that those that enroll online, except for paying fees, still will come in and be in the fast track, which we have it arranged that they could just quickly. It's in a really, they go to a different line and are able to quickly do that and leave. having, the 4 tables for the elementaries, a table for the, it really is a nice design that has been, I'd say Amy did as much work on this as anybody. And looking at the cafeteria at the high school is where we would end up arranging it, using the hallway before you get there to have the different tables of home and school and Boy Scout, Girl Scout, whatever other tables need to be there. But again, we're going to try it. We've had several different meetings. There's been a lot of discussion and a lot of chewing on some of the ideas as far as what this is going to be a problem. And I think we've been able to answer about all of the problems to be comfortable of trying it this year.
So you have multiple days then instead of just one?
Yeah.
Okay.
There'll be 3 days. And even looking at one of the 3 days to go later, so that it catches those people that are not just in the day that they can come enroll. We're with hopes that we can really push this hard. I hope that all of you understand that if we could get, this is not possible, well, I shouldn't say it that way, but if you got 90% that would come in and enroll during those 3 days or do the online, it takes so much burden off of these offices, the individual building offices, that then 2 weeks before school starts or the first week of school, because the one-on-one of people coming in and trying to then enroll just takes a lot of time, just one at a time tending to that. So we're going to try our very best with this try. I just wanted you to be aware that this is something that's come about, and the intent, it started with a matter of saying, well, one is when you end up having the interpreters have to be at one building during this time and another building at this time and arranging. Well, this way you have interpreters at the same location all the time. We were doing different things just because of how spread out it was of trying to arrange services, and Amy and tech people were running from one building to another building trying to tend to some issues that could come up with technology issues, and having everything at one location could be good for more than just parents, coming in and not having to run around to 2 or 3 different buildings to do that. So.
Good. Any questions on the central argument? The next item, the upcoming deadlines for the 2017 board member election.
I'll go through any questions you have, but really it's just a matter of identifying the deadlines are there for it to be publicly known that we're coming up on this as far as understanding what's necessary. And we have 3 board members that would be up, and then of course one more because of Sarah. So really there's 4 that's in some flux at this point. And it's just very important to look at the dates and be prepared for that. I don't know if there's any questions. It's more a matter of...
Does this get posted in like the newspaper?
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, Sarah had already sent it to the newspaper. Yeah, Mike's nodding his head. Okay, so I think it will be in there probably soon. So...
It's really not much time for you.
No.
Good. Next item on the agenda is the Indian Hall yearbook bid.
I really don't know much to add to that other than an explanation of looking at the 2 different companies that ended up sharing that. One is who we've gone with for quite some time. Balfour is one of them. The other one, Jostens, yeah. Jostens is the one that I think they've worked with for quite a number of years. Balfour has been, is the one that they've been working with. But the question ends up being, if there's any questions you have on it.
So we go through as far as we're paying them, this is a 3-year agreement. The students pay for these then, the yearbooks, or
What is this cost?
what does this cost cover?
The cost there ends up being the money that goes into those particular books. We end up, they pay for it, but it goes back in.
You know how much? I mean,
How much
does
are
it-
they charging?
Yes.
Well, does the price that we charge cover this?
Sarah, I don't know.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
That would be the only
Yeah,
question.
that's-
I
Which
apologize,
remember
I don't have
asking
the
this
details.
Prior, I mean, and I thought it did.
I was, and I also dropped it as far as knowing that Bill was going to be here to actually answer questions on it.
So what I'm hearing you is what does this cost cover, what does this cost cover? And then when the students pay, what cost are those?
I mean, I
Very
assume it would
different
just be a
than-
wash,
yeah.
Right,
but
right.
It's a vanity, it is a vanity.
I didn't.
Yeah,
Do
but
they
it's,
need us to act on this tonight then?
It's a new business, so they would ask for the next one.
but it sounds as if we need to get some answers for you on that. I apologize, did not really have that. It's, I too would assume that whatever that number is, you don't want to, I don't think there's the intent that they're making money
no.
on this. I think the intent is
I just want
trying
to make sure we're covering our
Right,
costs.
absolutely.
Break even.
which still makes those books more expensive. I mean, they're still awfully expensive books.
So, and it's not, I guess that was, you said students pay for it, they pay for it as part of their student fee.
They do pay for those books.
Separately.
Yes, if they want one.
Yeah,
Yes.
good choice.
It's still choice on their part whether they want one. We'll have more answers for you at the next meeting.
Perfect, thank you. Any other questions on the yearbook? Okay, the next item on the agenda is the Edgenuity license renewal.
Yeah, that one, we end up having Carrie here to end up sharing a little bit of the information. We are at a point where I think it's a 3-year license and it needs to be considered as well. So you have used it through this year?
Yes, I've used it several years, but we have used it through this year. I did look into a few other options. However, after speaking with the people about the other options, Odyssey Ware was one that I looked into. It's quite a bit more expensive, and I'm not sure that it really offers any more than what Edgenuity already offers us. So as far as this year, as far as our audit goes, we met where we needed to be student-wise, and the fee that they want to charge us on Edgenuity is the same as it has been in the past, $25,000 per year, and it is a total of $75,000. This year, I know I did renew a few of the foreign language courses. I just used money out of my budget for that. And other than that, it's pretty much the same. It's always been the same amount that it was, I know, 3 years ago. Excuse me.
And this is for a site license, which
Yes.
allows not a set number.
Right,
because-
everybody in the district can.
Right, because we do have foreign language classes at the high school.
We
and
do.
This is the curriculum. When we made reductions a few years ago, we reduced the teacher, but we use this and the teacher oversees.
Right,
the
we
rest.
also use it for AP history in high school.
That's right.
I mean, Masca has a few courses that she utilizes Edgenuity with. so.
And KBC and
Yes,
West Side.
yes. And we have a few at the middle school, but not a lot. So,
And Carrie and I did meet last
We
week
did.
to go over, virtual is one of the few items that is still being audited. And she was exactly dead on with the estimates to what was audited. We actually had a couple of part-time virtual students more than what we estimated, so her budget is just right on track.
this year it's looking good so far too.
Just out of question, comprehensive, what's that all include?
That would include all of the courses available. Currently, there are over 100 courses available within Edgenuity. The fees that they charge extra for would be a couple of the foreign language courses. But it's a minimal fee. it's not really that much compared to what we utilized before. I believe this year when I set up Ms. Folkers with her classes at the high school, I think we did 4 courses over there. One of those happened to be, and they were Latin. So,
But this is comprehensive in that you aren't creating your staff. I know when we were down there,
Right.
what we had.
it is the core curriculum.
But then we had to create so many classes on our own. You don't have any.
No, we
This
do not have to
covers
do that.
everything, the needs
Right.
that your credits those students.
Exactly,
need.
exactly, right. We have the ability to go in and customize a course. For instance, if a student comes in from another district and they've earned a quarter credit in a course, we have the ability to go in and clean out the areas of that course that they've already done well in and passed, they were awarded credit for, and we can build that course for them in Ingenuity to complete out their credit. Which is, and they actually revamped it this year, and I really like what they've done with it. It's very user-friendly. The kids seem to like it that come into the lab. I haven't had any complaints from any adults, and everybody, I think, everybody we have that enroll us seems to be comfortable with it. Haven't had a lot of issues with it.
So is license 1, is that August through, because then you got the prorate May through July.
Right, okay,
So is
that
there
was,
a cutoff in there?
no, that was when I was speaking to them, that when I was considering going with another program.
Okay.
Our license is up May 5th, so renewal would need to be by May 5th. I was discussing with them if I stretched it out through the summer so that we don't have to start a brand, so we wouldn't have to start an entirely new program for summer school because that would be pretty chaotic.
So if we approve this prior to May 5th,
Then that
18
amounts
goes
to
away?
that, right,
Okay.
6250.
exactly, that would be gone.
Yeah, or the 18 to 750.
Right.
750. Okay.
Right, that would not be there.
You know, and the other program, Odyssey, where it was more expensive, one of the features we liked is it offered a few more CTE courses. But we didn't feel we had everything in place to maximize and
Exactly.
justify that
Right.
extra expense, but it is something she's going to continue to explore.
And I-
To see if the high school, I know you said Tom Albers even.
Yes,
Had been
I haven't had a
introduced
chance
to
to
it.
talk to him in depth on it.
But if it's something that the high school could use as well, it might be then in 3 years, worth looking at again or revisiting. So it's always something, I know when it's up for renewal, that the
Right.
Learning Center sees what else is out there, what the needs are, and then makes a decision.
And with the, and I did look through districts across the state and programs across the state, and there are about 107 of them, virtual programs / schools throughout the state, and about 44% of them utilize Ingenuity, either solely or in combination with another program, like Fuel Ed or Odyssey Ware or Apex, one of those programs. But the thing that I really like about it is it does stand alone. You know, we still differentiate for students when we need to, a student who might be on an IEP or need some extra help, but basically it stands by itself, and that's one of the great things about it too.
So just another question, because I'm
Sure.
not familiar with it. So somebody who's looking at chemistry, let's say, are there virtual laboratories for the sciences?
Yes.
Is that how that's
Yes,
handled?
there is a laboratory built within each of the, actually all the science courses, they have labs. Or they have the lab and then they have a lab report that they can utilize, so.
And restriction of the license is just for our students, or is there a way to venture into community members that may want to do something here at a fee?
Well, actually.
No, I'm just asking.
No,
I know the answer.
And the answer's no.
Right, no.
I was
Right.
looking at trying to offset health insurance.
Which we used to
Okay, that's
offer,
what
but
you-
we used to, they could pay a fee and take a course at the.
And actually, well, summer school, we do fees with outside, any students outside of our district, they pay a fee to do credit recovery in the summer.
Okay.
So I assume we could probably do something.
Like business courses,
Right.
we would have community people who would
I was
come
thinking
in
adult
and
rather.
yeah, and because
Community-based,
we
but
had it,
yeah.
and our lab was open, and they paid a fee, and it
Right.
covered our expense, so.
I was just asking.
I just don't know if anyone's approached you or asked.
I have not
but
had anybody ask this year, but
We have
it's
done
an idea.
that.
I know that last year, we ended up doing several superintendents ended up in the area around Marion, Hillsborough, Harrington. We went to Lindsborg to observe what they were doing. Lindsborg has their virtual program, and it's a big one. It's one of the bigger ones in the state, a virtual program. They make money on that program. And they're using Ingenuity.
Right.
And last year, they ended up incorporating it within the school as a whole. And that the teachers are to utilize it as their curriculum. The intent was to try to move them to get away from the math, the English, and just go completely with Edgenuities
Right.
as being the curriculum, and that being a way of tremendous savings too. Not saying, no way am I saying I agree with it, I'm saying that Lindsberg is out there trying something quite different. It was working for several teachers who embraced it and was working with it. We observed some of those classrooms, and really they are doing a fine job. But it wasn't the majority at that particular point. And again, that was the front end of their push of trying it a little bit further than just a virtual programming, of using it really as a curriculum in the schools as a whole.
And they just did that this year, you said?
Last year they started it.
It'd be interesting to see scoring and things like that in the years to come, where they stand.
Yeah.
But it was the Edgenuity program they were.
Which you can also supplement, it within Ingenuity as well. If you wanted the students to do a particular something within a course, you could supplement that and put that in the course as well. So it's kind of up to you.
Yeah. There's that Genesequa teacher who owns curriculum versus a turnkey
Exactly.
teacher.
Right.
And my concern is it's turnkey because now you're starting to go against standards
I am not
and
saying
preparation
that's
of teachers.
an idea we want to go with.
We won't go,
I'm saying
I'll stop there.
That is Lindsberg that was,
It'd be interesting to see what they're scoring.
Well, but I'm thinking some states that have gone to turnkey teachers where, oh, you got a degree, you're the teacher, I don't care what your subject is. We'll just have you monitor this and you miss. Then
Well, you
we'll
become-
stop.
Well, it's pretty individualized. Where's the collaboration? Where's all those other things we teach
Yeah.
kids in the classroom? with
well, now they were pushing
instruction
it and
and-
saying that it was that facilitation where the students would do their, they would end up getting the materials at home because they were one-to-one, and they would end up getting the information and do that part as far as the kind of instruction, because they had videos that they'd end up watching the videos at home. Then they'd come to school and they'd end up doing their homework with the teacher.
So it's a flipped classroom.
Yes, they really were working hard. The
Okay.
math class that I observed was really a flip
Right, okay.
setting, is what they were doing.
I wonder about those soft skills that Commissioner Watson pushes.
Yeah.
Never mind. Let's move on.
We will bring this back to you in the next board meeting.
Any more questions?
Thank you.
You bet.
Thank
Thanks.
you very much. Next item on the agenda is discussion by board members and agenda requests. Any takers? Looks like we have the quarterly maintenance report that is attached as well.
I don't think Artie's not here, is he?
Not now.
I just heard some really outstanding feedback about how he handled the 8th grade orientation. I know I personally, so I didn't attend, but he sent out a voicemail to every prospective parent inviting them to the night, and I just heard he really wowed them. So that's great.
Well, and the high school we received a really good ACT award. So we will make sure that we take some time to recognize and celebrate. And that's a K-12 celebration, but definitely.
He's going to WSU tomorrow to receive it. And I would love to also attend, but that's during the executive meetings with the architects. And so Marty will go and take care of it. But understand, as far as a high school in the state, my understanding is only one high school in the state received this award. So it really is a really big honor. And we'll make sure at the next board meeting we give it great recognition.
And I will say, as a parent who was one of the chaperones at the prom, kudos to the staff of the high school and how they organized that, and then the parent volunteers, which there were a lot of parent volunteers from the junior class that were there, but very professional, very well handled, and made a very safe and enjoyable environment for the prom for the kids. So, that, and also continue with the music. I managed to go watch the regional contest, and the musicians we had, both orchestral and instrument and vocal, did very well. I'm sure we'll get to recognize them at a later point, but it was fun being there to watch some of that. And the prom particularly was very professionally well handled.
It's a busy day.
I started in liberal on Friday, so I went home to watch another child in a play.
Well, I don't know if we made note, if the agenda, we changed a little bit the agenda. You'll notice old business and new business, like you asked if we need action. Our thoughts are old business would be things that either would need action or were brought up before and we're revisiting. Those new business, those are the things you're hearing for the first time, so we would rarely need action on that, but those will come back next time in old business.
Well, I thought there was one item at the beginning that we didn't actually have the agenda item cover sheet.
Yes, I think that was the board policy review.
Okay.
I apologize.
Okay, so that was just an oversight. We're still getting those.
Yes,
When
absolutely.
we need to take action, we will always see one of those, no
Yes.
matter if it's this
Okay,
week or
you're
next
asking
week.
that.
That helps, okay. Well, I think Josh made it, he needs a motion on this.
And probably just, it was discussed last time.
Okay. Any other discussion or agenda requests? We do need an exec session tonight to cover superintendent evaluation and some personnel matters. So I will make a motion to enter into exec session for a period of, say, 25 minutes for the purposes of evaluation and personnel matters to include the board, the superintendent, the board attorney. That's sufficient. That's it. Anybody else?
Well, on the personnel,
Would you like something else?
I mean, Tracy, I would like for Tracy
Okay.
to be there too. She's been as involved in that.
And the financial director as well. And second. Moved and seconded. Any further discussions?
You're doing,
Both of those?
I figured we'd go, yeah, do the first part and then we'll have them lead and we can do the super.
you'll need to do separate motions on
Okay.
For the
it.
first,
Session to discuss.
Personnel matters?
Yes. you
Well, it's
do
all
that.
personnel.
I guess that's true. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. So,
yeah,
okay.
so you're okay. You're good.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed?